Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. And it's finally NFL draft week. We have some teams making moves. It seems like A.J. Brown might be on the move to potentially the Patriots. I don't know if that went through yet or not. We're recording a little bit early, so by the time you hear this, trades like that will probably be set in stone. New York has been making moves. Both the Jets, I think, and the Giants have 2 picks in the first 16. Is what they're saying. Like a quarter of the first 16 picks are New York picks. And one involved the Bengals getting out. Because I saw their fans were happy they didn't have to travel to Pittsburgh. Because they didn't have a pick anymore, right? Why would you go to Pittsburgh for the opening round? And I don't know. We'll see. I'm not really sold on some of the top prospects. There's been chatter with the Raiders, right? Supposed to take Mendoza, trade for Kirk Cousins, or sign Kirk Cousins. I can't remember if he is a free agent or what. But now there are rumors that they were shopping around that first pick. The Cardinals, I think at 3, they like Jeremiah Love, which you never take a running back that high. So they're shopping around their pick because why not, right? If you can trade back and still get him because no one else is going to really risk a running back that high. If he gets taken at 3rd, and then you see a second round running back being better, how does that make your team feel? Because to me, they don't really feature. I guess the offense has changed in Arizona, right? Kyler Murray's gone, so who knows what it's going to look like. But they kind of needed that guy more shifty, like Le'Veon Bell, or even like James Conner to an extent, like a light version of Le'Veon Bell. But Jeremiah Love is a totally different beast. He would be more like a pro-style Harbaugh type running back. So, I don't know. What's your predictions on the top picks? Do you think anyone's going to trade around? And do you think there's going to be any surprises at number 1?
At this point, I would be shocked if there's surprises at number 1. It feels like the last couple of years it's been pretty consistent with the reporting that's out there. That I would be shocked if there's some movement. There's always a couple teams that do something really crazy in the first round and feel like they have to overstep for somebody. So I'm sure it may not be top 5, but I think a lot of it shuffles on where guys start to fall. You start to have a bunch of running backs that are all stacked, or wide receivers that are stacked. And it's like, I need this guy. And then they're willing to make that jump to go up and get him. And it just creates a domino effect afterwards.
Well, it's crazy. That one wide receiver that's been shooting up is a guy that I think Deion Sanders cut at Colorado. Right? And so you never know how many of these guys are just being drafted based on physicality, their athleticism. I don't know. Versus actual production. Because they always have some like that. And then do you want to risk taking guys that high because of that? I think that's why the Ohio State guys are shooting up the board. Because of their athleticism. It's not a knock. Ohio State puts out some great players in the NFL. Right? There's no need to lie about that. I think they've had the number 1, the most number 1 or first round picks, I think. I don't know about number 1, but of any team. And yeah, of course you're going to hit when you have that many with some of them. But I don't know if there's going to be a lot of a shift away from just taking the stock defense, offensive line guys. And with that, do you move around a lot? There's not any crazy freaks this year that I've seen that'll make you jump. Like Jeremiah Smith next year, if he comes out, would be one where it's okay, someone's going to make a move for him, right? I've talked about Love. I just don't think that because of the position running back that there's going to be a major push to get him early. Mendoza's not even going to be at the draft, by the way. So I wonder if that would play into it. If there's a conspiracy that happens, right? He falls off that number 1 spot. Could that be a factor? He's staying in Miami with his family or wherever he's from in Florida. So crazy. What else was I going to say? I had some other NFL stuff. Oh, wait. One of the players, it came out speaking about Ohio State. I want to see which receiver it was from there. Smith and Jigba, right? Said that he had hamstring issues at Ohio State. He was wearing size 12 shoes. When he went to the NFL, they had him fitted, and he's now wearing a 10.5. And so he hasn't had any problems since. And they talked it up like the NFL was using body scans. But realistically, you can go to any shoe store and get your shoes fitted to you, bro. Right? That's like a service. I guarantee Ohio State has that service. They have the Nike guys come right in there.
I'm certain of that, but I also feel like guys at that stage of the game are also very much like picky and superstitious with the style of shoe, the type of, like, I don't know. I really think that they would really customize everything to the player. That actually surprised me whenever it came out, that it was that much of a discrepancy.
Well, see, I remember as a kid, I don't know what, but we actually had the shoe guy come. I don't know, what was it, like middle school or something? It was around that where a guy came in and got us fitted. Because I know my brother was he's like a couple years younger, but he got his shoes fitted or whatever. And he was like between like a 13 and a 14 or something. I can't remember off the top of my head. And I was always like 11 or 12, depending on the style. As I got a little bit older, it kind of like just sits at 12. If I try 11, it's going to like just crunch my feet. And 13s are obviously too big, maybe like a half size. But if I generally just buy a 12, it just fits, right? Because I went through that process. But I remember having a player on our team that would just wear bigger shoes, and they had them fitted, and they recommended going down. And he was like, "Nah, I need to have big shoes. Like and I'm like, okay, odd, right? Odd decision on your part. Looks like you're running around with like clown shoes on, like boots out there." And I could see that being a thing. Right? Because you have some of these guys that are coming up in college, like 5-star dudes. They come in, they're getting advice, and they're not going to take it. Because you have different people in your ear the entire time. And so I was watching the documentary that CBS did for March Madness this year, Made for March, I think is what it was called. And they focused on Kansas and Michigan. And this was a documentary that was announced before the tournament, so they didn't know Michigan was going to win the national championship. So it was pretty much two narratives. The Michigan narrative was about the transfer portal. Can you bring in a bunch of guys and mix them with like a couple of just guys that have been at Michigan for a while and get that culture together, right? But if you watch it, these guys all have other advisors in their ear, right, the entire time. And so the Michigan one was like pretty awesome, right? Winning. It was all about like coming together, playing video games together, going out fishing, like doing stuff to like kind of build team, like riding a bus, like I think we talked about. The Kansas one was a little bit odd, and it was kind of off to me, right? I don't know if other people watched it, and as like a neutral observer, it seemed they focus on Bill Self a lot, where it would come about like Michigan would have a clip and it would be talking about building the team and like becoming a family. And then Bill Self would be like, I'm like trying to be my dad. And he'd like just start talking about himself and not talking about the players. And I'm like, it's just a totally different vibe you have here. And I know he had like a heart issue throughout the season, so I don't know if that's a thing. But I think for some of these coaches and the players, when you have just like different focus. So like the Kansas narrative throughout the documentary, and you can watch it, their star player would just sub himself out of games because he said he was cramping up. And so like the doctors didn't know what to do because they're like, is he telling the truth? The media were like saying he's faking it, right? He's like balancing his load for the NBA next year because he's supposed to be a top draft pick. I don't know. He could be number one. Like I have no idea. But it was like, is it a real thing? And I looked it up after because I don't remember seeing this. And I've followed basketball a lot this year. And I don't remember hearing about him like cramping up and just not playing. I mean, Kansas wasn't a real contender. I mean, I guess they climbed up maybe to the top 10. I can't remember, but Arizona and Houston were pretty much running the Big 12. So Kansas being an afterthought, maybe that's why it wasn't in the national media. But they did have ESPN clips of some of their hosts calling them out. Because if you're a coach and your players coming in and they do interviews with these guys, right? Hey, we're thinking about drafting you. Well, what's this cramping thing? Is it real? Because that's usually nutrition. I would assume they have nutrition things. They talked about how some of the players would just eat whatever they wanted. And I was like, all right, well, are they like hinting that he just has like a poor diet? I don't know. I mean, I was in and out. Like, it's hard to watch like a 4-hour documentary and like pay attention. I don't know how long it actually was. There's 4 episodes, but they never really solved it. Right. When we got in the tournament, he was like miraculously not cramping. Of course, like, oh, all the TVs are on him. He's not cramping anymore. Random game Wednesday night in the Big 12 on the road, cramping. Not playing. And so he talked about getting IVs. If you're an NFL coach, you have the same, you don't know. Another Georgia player got arrested. Did you see that story?
No.
So
please tell me that you're driving.
Oh, even worse, dude. A cop told him to clear the sidewalk and he refused. And so then he it was like, I don't know if he was like pressuring him or what, but the story said that like the cop said, you got to at least move to the back so we can get people through here. And he was like, took one step back and smirked at him or something and said like, this good enough? And they're like, all right, we're taking you in, dude. The week of the draft, man, you have nothing else going on. He's like a wide receiver, I think, being touted for maybe the second round or second day, right? Which is the second round. And so instead, you're like, could be getting booked. I don't know if they released him or what, but he said he got like 2 misdemeanors for like arguing with the cops and not, or disrupting like the traffic flow or something. And so with the way everything is, you would think that there would have been a camera like video. I tried to look before we recorded because I think the story just came out and everyone's like, well, that's just Georgia police looking for a fight, right? Which could be. But if you're in the NFL and you know, like, I'm getting drafted this week, maybe it's not in your best interest to push buttons, right? Just go home. I think they said it was like after midnight again, which, why are you out? Go hang out with your family. Do anything else other than get in trouble. You have like a big windfall coming, dude. A big money windfall. So crazy. But yeah, is there anything you want to add about players that I missed coming up before this draft here?
I'm almost wondering why college teams aren't doing more with their NIL to like factor in like security, like to have like a, for lack of better wording, like a chaperone or someone that's going to like help. Like you have a lot of these social media people that have bodyguards and different stuff like that. It just makes me laugh. I'm thinking they can't be that expensive. But like you would think, protect your university, because it's like, how many years in a row does Georgia run into these issues? And it's like, yeah, can't make it through an off season without getting players kicked off for rules violations.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because in the documentary, Yaxel, Michigan's big transfer, that was like the stud, he had an advisor and they had him on the documentary. And they didn't, I don't know if they really showed him. Like, I don't remember seeing his face, but I remember like he went through a stretch where like you could tell he wasn't really trying. And they had a clip of him in the car. Yaxel was like driving and his advisor called and was like, hey, you don't think I'm watching the games, dude? I saw you like not fighting for rebounds. You're just standing there. He's like, what are you doing? Like you're trying to win the national championship. Are you going to be playing hard? And I was like, oh my gosh, could you imagine having an advisor like tell the star of the team that he's not trying hard, and like not even just saying it, but like it's also being just like randomly recorded because you could just tell his face just like went like stone. Like he was like mad that the guy was calling him out. Because do you think the guy, like, I don't think they probably set that up, right? Because like, what are the TV producers like, hey, we're going to have your life coach call you and like say that you're not doing good for the show.
We're going to cut you out.
Right? Because I was like, oh my gosh, could you imagine? Because he also was checking in on making sure like if he had practice, he was studying. Because like, I think he was like notoriously featured in ESPN for like not trying, like not going to class in high school and like not being able to make the team for academic reasons. So he had to go the JUCO route. And so that was the thing where he has an advisor. And to your point, I was thinking, man, this is like brilliant. Because they featured the Michigan guy, Kaysen. I remember I said he had that ACL injury. And I thought that like having the backup's going to be worse. But when he got injured, he actually started like being an accountability coach on the team. And they had clips of him like calling players out. Like, bro, I want to be playing with you to win the national championship. I can't. I need you to step up. Like, quit goofing around. Right? Start focusing on practice. And I think having that accountability is huge. Because if you watch the Kansas side, they didn't have that. Like Bill Self talked to the one about like, hey, we need to play fast, but you guys are like all doing one-on-ones. Like, what are you doing? You're not working as a team. And then that was it. Like, that was the discussion. And then they were just like laughing. And I thought like, ooh, this looks bad. Right. Like you could just see like the differences where one team has like a guy that's getting yelled at by his life coach for not trying hard. And then the other ones, they're just like, hey, I'm not going to play today because I'm cramping. And then he talked about like how it was hurting the locker room. And I was like, well, then just don't play him. Right? You're the coach. If the guy's hurt, shut him down for the year. Let him go to the NBA. Right? I mean, honestly, watching knowing what the outcome, Kansas didn't even make the Sweet 16, I don't think. If he knew in hindsight that was going to be their out, what would have been the difference if in the middle of January or February, he just said, you're done. You can't figure out the cramping thing. He said on the show, like, you're messing with the flow of the team because the guys they're not used to playing with you because you're playing half the game. But he's the coach. Just shut it down. Say like, yo, we're better without you. We got to get ready for a run here. They expect us to, like, they're paying tons of NIL because they kept mentioning the NIL stuff for like Kansas. And yeah, perfect. Plus the other thing that was crazy, Matt, that tournament that Michigan was in, the Kansas was in at the beginning of the year where the players won $1 million or whatever. They knew, like they had whole discussions. Like Dusty May was talking to them like, guys, it's up to you. We can run the score up. Because the way the tournament was, you had to have like whoever had the best margin of victory advance to like the championship game. And so that's why Michigan, I didn't realize that's why Michigan was like pounding those teams by like 40. Like they were trying to win the money. He was like, you guys want a payday? Like, let's go for it. And I thought that was like eye-opening because how many coaches are going to talk about like players getting paid in the middle of like a tournament run? Like, because then Yaks, when they won, he bought his mom like a Jeep. She was like having a meltdown. I was like, that's crazy. Right? Because later you find out like that his mom gets cancer during the season, I think, which is sad. It's like really messed him up. I think that's why his life coach was calling him out partly too, because his head wasn't in the game. And I mean, worked. Right? I don't know how any NBA guy, like if you're a scout for the NBA, you watch that documentary. One guy that's being touted for the NBA is like fighting through everything. His mom getting cancer, motivating, wins a national championship. The other guy, for no reason, just talks about like, yeah, I'm cramping up out there. Not going to be playing hard. I don't know how you would take that. But who knows? The NFL does a lot of the same thing. Guys not listening, getting in trouble, not coaches like undermining them. You hear a lot about like players he get from like coaches where they're like, the coach talked trash on me to the other team. It's like, why? Right? I doubt he's talking trash to like his star players. So I don't know. I wonder how much of that impact is going to be because It's just crazy. But let's see.
And I would think with the stuff like that style of documentary comes out, I think that almost shapes some of the questions about players' character. And I think like you can really highlight who's being a dick and who's a true, authentic person through that would help with that evaluation process. I mean, you got guys that were getting fired over just looking at PFF grades. It's like, how much evaluating are you doing with some of these teams and some of these players?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you're looking at that documentary, just going off it, because the one guy said that he went to Kansas specifically to play for Bill Self because he said he was going to be like in the Hall of Fame. Like he's like coming to play for a Hall of Fame coach. And I'm sure a lot of coaches do that. But if you watch that documentary and you see how Michigan built those guys up, because it showed Dusty May was like in the locker room randomly going through and showing like Yaks how he was getting off balance in the game. Like just random. He's like, yeah, every time I need like advice or I'm like struggling, like coach would just get down and like get into it with me. Right? How many coaches are doing that? Right? Randomly hanging out, like missing family time to like get your players in the right mindset. To me, it sold the entire program. And there's no surprise now that Michigan's in the mix for like almost every big time transfer. Because all coach has to say is, hey, there's a documentary out, dude. Spend 3 hours, watch it. Right? You come here. All I'm trying to do is get you ready for the NBA. Because they even showed that some of those transfers, like Mara, he didn't even care about the NBA because he didn't think he was good enough. They were telling him he stunk. He like talked about how UCLA didn't even play him as much as they said they were going to because they didn't think he was good. Then it also showed how he kept working at practice to get his free throws down, where I didn't even realize he was that bad at the beginning of the year, where he was making like less than 40% or something, they said, to where he's hitting them down the stretch in the tournament. I don't even remember that one game. He like didn't miss. So if you can show that type of growth, yeah, I'm guessing the NBA is going to pay attention. But who knows? Will they do that documentary again? Like I said, I'm surprised that picking Michigan, not as like a homer thing, it made sense, right? They brought in the biggest transfer in Yaks, and they brought in a lot of, like they had the number one transfer class, I'm pretty sure Michigan did by far. And Michigan also had a high recruiting class too. People overlook that. And the same thing happened in this year. Michigan has one of the best recruiting classes and one of the best transfer classes. I don't think you can win with one. I think you need both. Same goes with football. You can't, like Indiana, people talk about how they had this transfer class or whatever, but Cignetti had a lot of those guys brought in from high school recruiting with him at JMU. Just because they initially transferred in, those were his guys. Right? Last year, Dusty May did the same thing. He brought guys with him from FAU, the Final Four team. I think that was the team that went to the Final Four. He brought those guys with him and like brought in some of the best players from like Yale or whatever. Plus he brought in some other freshmen and stuff too. So like you have to do both. That's where like right now, Indiana, they don't have the JMU high school recruits to fall back on this year. Like Mendoza was a transfer. They're bringing in another quarterback transfer. So if Cignetti gets another transfer quarterback and Mendoza goes number one, next year, this other like senior transfers in and then he gets him going in the top 10. You have to say that's not a fluke. Right? Because even Ryan Day got Will Howard to transfer in. They won a national championship. He didn't go to like what? Late day 2, day 3, was he? Or when did the Steelers get him? Was he wasn't second round, was he? He definitely didn't have the season that Mendoza had, and he had way better weapons. Like, no offense to the Indiana guys. But what do you do? Right? That's why some of the spring games are on. I don't think you can kind of like base your season off the spring game. Like I saw Ohio State's guys just throwing the ball everywhere. And I thought like, I don't know if that'd be making me feel comfortable, right? If the offense just looks like it's head and shoulders better whenever they had trouble scoring on Miami last year in the playoffs. So you would hope the spring game, to me personally, I think you always hope that the defense looks better because the offense hasn't had time to gel. If your offense is out there just tearing it up, that always kind of scares me a little bit, especially because for people that don't know, they split the teams up, right? Typically. Some guys do it like one-on-ones. I saw Michigan State was doing like the dizzy bat race. And I thought, what are they doing? Who's that for? Because the teams don't get a lot of fans at these games. Like if I went there to see a scrimmage and they were like doing minor league baseball inning like competitions, I would be mad. Not going to lie. But I think that when you do a team and you do like a split, usually the offensive line, you don't have your number one offensive line. And even if you, like most people are going to lose some offensive linemen through the draft or through just people graduating. And so you're going to have half of an offensive line on each team that has played together. So the defense should be able to dominate. I think that's why a lot of teams like we're not doing any blitzing. We're not doing this. Like it has to be straight up, right? But if you have a team that's like 4 deep at D end, like a lot of the power programs, yeah, you're going to get some pressure. And to me, that's what stood out to like Ohio State. Like, why is this guy having a clean pocket for like 20 minutes? Where's their pressure? They're known for like having great, like Arvell Reese, man, and getting in there, getting pressure. I know that linebacker, whatever, like they have guys, Bosa, defensive guys out there. History of it. And they didn't look like they were getting any pressure on Saturday. So I saw a lot of Ohio State fans bragging about their offense. It's like, we know your offense always puts up stats, fellas. It's whenever they get punched in the mouth that it doesn't show up. Indiana, Michigan, other teams punching them in the mouth, Miami, Oregon. Like that's usually whenever they fold. But I know I was positive on Michigan's basketball. I think Michigan's fallen in the same hole that Kansas is doing maybe with Bryce Underwood. Right? New coaching scheme. I'm dogging Ohio State's defense. Michigan's quarterback position with Bryce Underwood did not look good. I saw the beat writers for Michigan like hyping it up. Like, oh, no. Same things I was kind of saying like, oh, yeah, it wasn't a full offensive line. It's like, dude, he's a sophomore now. He should be able to get the ball out and hit a receiver in stride. His footwork is still a mess. And I saw a montage that someone put together of how, when he started last year, and I honestly forget, right, because of a lot of the offseason stuff that Sharon went through, he was actually looking pretty good at the beginning of the year. And throughout the year, Underwood's footwork got worse and worse and worse, almost as if he wasn't getting coached, right? Which, of course, we probably know he wasn't. And so then that's carried over to now. I know spring practice, they only had a couple of weeks of actually working with them. But to me, that's the number one thing. He got to go back to getting his footwork fixed. Otherwise, Michigan's going to be in trouble. And the sad thing is, Carr, Notre Dame's quarterback's brother, I think it's his brother, maybe it's his cousin, but Lloyd Carr's grandson, Michigan got him in as a freshman. He looked comfortable in the pocket as a freshman. And I know he's like only weighs like 180 pounds or something crazy. So he'd probably get murdered out there. But at some point, it's not beyond the realm of possibilities, whether it's this year or next year with the sophomore leap. Because we saw it with JJ and Cade. If Bryce doesn't make that leap this year, and you have Carr that has a family history of like just being great quarterbacks, potentially, how do you not give a run?
So, well, with your footwork question, I'm going to ask you a schematic question. Do you feel like it helps quarterbacks to be under center more or operate from the gun?
Well, that's a good question because I can't remember if he was in the gun or not. I don't think he's under center. If I'm being, what did Beck do at Utah? Because that would be the answer. I know he has like a positionless offensive scheme where people kind of just float around, and that way it kind of lets him pick the defense apart. And honestly, no homer here. I know a lot of people are like down on Michigan's defense like this year because of like talent or people leaving and like shifting away from the Harbaugh's defense. But this Michigan offense, just across the board with the wide receiver transfers they got and like bringing in tons of like great running backs, this is the most talented Michigan offense I can remember. Like Michigan has never had this many weapons at wide receiver since maybe like Manningham played. Like way back when. Like Avant and those guys, I don't know, did they overlap with Braylon? Like that's kind of what's happening now. Because like they're bringing in great recruits that Utah was going to get at wide receiver to go with some of the guys they've already had. They get transferred from Texas in. And you're having a ton of dudes out there that if he's able to shift around, but it doesn't matter if the receivers are open and they're having to make like adjustments or one-handed catches or just not able to kind of get in to a groove. And having the insiders kind of slant it and say, well, he looked bad in the spring game because they're going to run like a quarterback run first offense, which could work, right? But like it worked with Cam Newton because he could also throw the ball. And I don't know. Now, luckily, like I said, Michigan has more talent than on paper than what the Auburn team did, where it was really Cam and a bunch of dudes if you go back and look at that team. But we have seen quarterbacks that can Superman a team to a national championship. Vince Young, Joe Burrow, Cam Newton, right? Teams that are like, you're kind of like, oh, go back and look at it. And the quarterback, man, really played lights out. And that's really how that team won. And so teams can win that way. I just don't know if Bryce is the guy. And talking about balancing NIL, if you're throwing millions of dollars at him to be the guy, is it going to hurt your locker room? New coaching staff, you don't really want to lose that locker room. Because honestly, like I said, I bring up the Kansas comparison in basketball. It looked like when that dude started sitting out with cramps and there was no answer for it. Because if the medical staff can't find any reason for it, then it's kind of mental, or like they speculated, he had people telling him to kind of take it easy, which hurts team chemistry. Right? Like if Bryce comes in and throws like 3 picks, is he going to get the hook? Play Oklahoma early, right? Venables' defense is going to be ready to go. They played him last year, right? Underwood, I don't think really got going in that game. And then Michigan's defense wasn't what it was supposed to be. So this year, we'll see what happens. But you can't use the freshman excuse this year, right? Did Florida State or any ACC teams have a game you watched?
No, I know the big thing, they kind of just said because of all the NIL stuff, Florida State wasn't doing theirs, but I've been seeing some reports. I think it's kind of a little bit interesting to see how their quarterback situations are going to play out. Because they brought in a couple of different guys, and it seems like they're still going to kind of follow that same Malzahn, Norvell power spread offense. So I think there is a little bit of continuity, although it's not going to be the same without Castellanos there. But I think in some aspects it'll be a little bit better, just because I think Tommy was more of a runner, and he didn't have as much of a passing threat, which it wasn't as much of a concern for me, because I think they're at the point that they're at, I want to see them run the ball more and grind stuff out. So I was a little bit more okay. I think when you get yourself pigeonholed into such a heavy run first scheme, it limits what you can do in the passing game. And I think that's to me, that's become more the emphasis that I have is I want to see a stronger run game, but also have the ability to take some horizontal shots, like your shallow crosses and things like that, that get athletes in space, give them a chance to run after the catch. And I think if they can get more of that, with high percentage throws, your bubble screens, your smoke screens, get the ball to your athletes in space and let them run. I think they can chew clock and be more competitive.
And that's where I think when I was looking at some of the schedules, if you can get that run game going, there's going to be more of a balance between not even just the top teams, but kind of like the conference, where the conference is the difference between the Big Ten and the SEC and then these other conferences. It's not going to really matter in terms of the tournament now, right? The playoffs or whatever they're calling it. Because if you can get hot and you're able to kind of control that line of scrimmage, like you're saying, you're going to have a puncher's chance. Because the teams that have done well, like Miami, they're built on pressure on the defensive side and more of like a running pro style offense. Even if they didn't have a stud like Jeremiah Love, like Notre Dame rode their rushing game to the runner up the year before. And no one's gone out of their way to be like, this Notre Dame team is like loaded, right? They're losing to MAC schools. And so that's one of the things I saw Notre Dame fans after the Michigan basketball natty. They came out of the woodwork. They were like putting up weird stats. Like, oh, Notre Dame is better at Michigan than football. Like they have more ranked wins over the past so many years. And it's like, there's a difference between, that any Big Ten team that has like 8-4, there's no way they're ranking them ahead of like a 7-5 SEC team over the past decade. No way. And so, like, I'm okay if Notre Dame is getting ranked wins over, like, no offense to Pitt, but like a 25th ranked Pitt, Notre Dame beats them. Like, okay, I'll take the national championship in football and basketball, buddy. You guys rack up those ranked wins. Like, I don't care about ranked wins at all because, like, the bias is there. And the NCAA now, did you see this? I don't know if I sent it to you. They recommended the earlier start to the football season. So, week 0, where you had to have been like, there were rules. I forget what it was. Like they had kind of made it weird. Like you had to play overseas or you had to like play Hawaii in the season, right? So you can get the double bye week. Now they're moving it up. And I'm wondering if the shift is kind of a precursor to, they know they're going to expand the playoffs. They don't want to rush it. Let's start to move the season earlier. I saw a lot of people saying, okay, now they're going to have 2 bye weeks. But I've also heard some rumblings that they're trying to get the regular season back to ending before Thanksgiving, right? Like around Thanksgiving or whatever it is. I think it was always before Thanksgiving, maybe. I don't know if they're going to give up that Thanksgiving window, though. Because will the Big Ten stop having Michigan, Ohio State that's being killer ratings, that TV, like that is basically running the Big Ten money, right? That game. Their TV deal. That's why they're making more than everybody. For that game is like 20 million or whatever, between 10 and 20 every year. After Thanksgiving, yeah, they're going to keep that. Now, do they get rid of the Big Ten championship game? Personally, I've been on board saying, yeah, they should. And I'll tell you why. No one cares about conference champs and how you can have a tiebreaker in the conference championship game. I saw did Indiana play Ohio State last year? I think they did, because I saw some Ohio State people saying like, if we were to beat Indiana there, it would have took some shine off of like their national championship. I just watched Michigan lose the Big Ten championship in basketball and then win the national championship. And guess what? I don't care about that Big Ten championship tournament at all. Right? They won the regular season. To me, that's more important than the tournament. If Michigan wins the tournament, awesome. Claim it as a Big Ten championship because that's what they kind of do. Right? I would rather see the Big Ten get rid of the tiebreaker, like that championship game, because there's always weird tiebreakers that just don't work out now, and go back to sharing the title. Because in an expanded playoff, if you get teams that are able to kind of promote that shared conference championship. I don't care if they get 4 teams that claim in the championship. It's going to, number one, help their recruiting, and number 2, help the divisibility of the entire conference. Because if bowl games are starting to go away, how is a Northwestern that has been in the Big Ten championship game only to get beat? Purdue's been there only to get beat. Iowa's been there to only get beat. What if you eliminate that extra loss and then they have something to build off for the next year? Like, hey, we were Big Ten champs. Doesn't matter if we tied with Indiana, Ohio State, and Michigan. Like, it doesn't matter. Oregon, all tied. Because I don't think you're going to get that many ties every year. But if a team does make a run, and even if it's on a weaker schedule, whatever, personally, I think they deserve to be called conference champs. You already have 18 teams or however many in the conference. SEC has been talking about it. I've seen a lot of people down here in the ACC have been talking about getting rid of it too, because the ACC one doesn't make as much money as the Big Ten and the SEC one. SEC doesn't really want to give up that payday. If they can get them to push the conference, like the games back, and then you kind of have like maybe a conference play-in game. But even then, I don't think you want to be in a position where you're eliminating your own conference. And that's where I think if they push the season back, it ends the weekend after Thanksgiving still. You have like Ohio State, Michigan. You have the Iron Bowl. You have the backyard brawl. Like, right, get all your games right there. Try to bring all your rivalry games back that weekend. Because I'm calling for Pitt and like West Virginia. Like, I don't care if they're in different conferences, whatever. I think if the NCAA football makes that their pure rivalry week, and they somehow work it out where you're getting all these games, Notre Dame, USC, if they don't play it anymore, whatever, we just won't have it. But I think if college football can get that, and then the next week, instead of having these meaningless conference championship games, you start with the first round of the playoffs. Think of them as kind of like the play-ins. Right there, boom. And I still think they need to fight. I think everyone needs to fight from these smaller conferences, smaller states. I don't care if they have to do it lawsuits, whatever. They need to try to get every conference champ in it. One, right? You get rid of the conference, they have to have a tie-breaking procedure to find out who number 1 is. But I think every conference should have a champ. If you go to the Big 12 route and they say like, hey, we don't have a champ, pick of any of our 3, then the college playoff can say, no, we're picking 0 of them. Like they did the Big 12s that one year, right? Wasn't it Baylor and like TCU? They were like, we're not going to pick a champ and let them put both of them in. And then that's how Ohio State got in and got that national championship. Because they shouldn't even have been in, right? If the Big 12 had picked a champ, Ohio State is most likely not in, and Urban Meyer never wins a national championship at Ohio State. Think of that, right? Think of that. It's happened. So get rid of them. And if the smaller conferences want to have them as like a tiebreaker or like a play-in game, have them that same weekend. Could you imagine? Because like the Michigan Ohio State game's early in the day. Auburn, Alabama is usually like at 3:30. Have the MAC championship at 8 p.m. or whatever, like the MAC Sun Belt Challenge to get into the playoffs. Perfect. Then everybody's in. I mean, if it works for the basketball tournament, no one cares. I don't care if you go to 16 teams, whatever. Let that opening week be the challenge week. And I think, well, I just want football that's meaningful and gets other teams and other players in. Because if you get other conferences into an auto bid, then you'll stop seeing the concentration of talent at these top schools. Because realistically, how many players are going to transfer in to sit on the bench? They're not. That's why the transfer portal has been decimating the SEC. And I wanted to bring up my last thing. Did you see where Simpson, Alabama's quarterback, tried to like trash talk Indiana's defense, where he was like, they're running simple schemes out there. We could have picked them apart. I knew exactly what they're doing. I just didn't do it, right? And it was kind of like, I don't know if he was given like a backhand compliment, because I read it a few times. I saw people on both sides. But the defensive coordinator actually came out and was like, said something like, amazing. I retweeted it. He's like, amazing. You could go through and know everything we're doing and only score 0 points on us. Perfect. which is great. Like, right? The coach should be able to talk trash. I don't care. I think it's awesome. I saw other people calling him out. It's like you can have coaches like Tom Izzo complain about everything under the sun. And everyone in college basketball is like, well, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, so we have to listen to St. Thomas here, right? Whatever he says. But like some random defensive coordinator at Indiana, they're like, know your place, son. You're just a defensive coordinator at Indiana. You're a nobody. That you're talking about the great dynasty of Alabama. Because honestly, Alabama hasn't been winning in this NIL era. So, and they just got whooped 38-3 or whatever that game was. And their quarterback has the audacity to talk about how poor the defense was on their team. Hilarious. And so I'm saying that with the draft coming up. I wonder, you have a lot of people like this that still think that the SEC mythical talent gap is there when you have everybody transferring everywhere, right? Are we going to start to see a shift where, hey, SEC doesn't have all the talent getting drafted because their talent's getting shipped around? And if they're not competing for championships, it's going to sound really dumb whenever their players are like, yeah, we play in the toughest conference. Haven't won a championship in like 7 years, but yeah, we're tough. Because that was my beef with the Big Ten basketball. Always talking about like their physicality and the officials are letting things go. Then they get into the tournament where they don't let that stuff go. And everybody's home like the first weekend and no one ever wins a championship. It's like, yeah, Big Ten basketball is not that good. It's annoying as crap. I hate it here. And then finally Michigan breaks through. And now I saw the same thing even on the documentary. It's like, oh, Big Ten basketball. Like, you got a lot of great Hall of Fame coaches. It's like this infatuation with these Hall of Fame coaches when guys are still coaching. Like, you win one national championship like Tom Izzo, and they're like, Hall of Famer, write it up. He got that one. Like, Harbaugh got one. If he's like in the College Football Hall of Fame, like maybe. Right? He also had a lot of weird stuff going on. Did you put him in? I mean, yeah, they kind of said like he didn't really work out. Like he didn't get any penalties other than like they just got him for not cooperating. I'm sure he'll never get in the Hall of Fame. But you have some of these other coaches, like they don't talk. I told you, UConn with Hurley, UNC should have threw every cent that they had at him and said like, no, we're going to be the blue blood, right? He already won 2 at UConn. That's the best coach. And the fact that they didn't even try to bring him up. And in the documentary, they're kind of like, yeah, UConn's good, but they're only recently good. And they kind of talk to him like untouchable. And I'm like, if UNC's that much of a football powerhouse, they should be able to grab that coach and do whatever they want with them, right? Not settle with some guy that was like choice number 5 from the NBA. And maybe he'll work out, right? But you, as a random fan, you can't pretend like UNC didn't settle. Like they weren't trying to get Lloyd from Arizona or May from Michigan. No, they were. But they just couldn't get it done. And that's my thing with some of these SEC schools. We'll see how the draft goes this year, but it has to be a put-up year. It would be almost devastating if Miami can get it done this year or Notre Dame, because Notre Dame hasn't won anything in 30 years. Plus, I don't know how many years it's been. I'm sure their fans know. Has to be agonizing, right? Has to be close to what Michigan basketball was, right? Because then they win in 88. Michigan basketball won in 89. So Notre Dame probably missed their chance, Matt. Last year could have been it. They should have won it the year before Michigan won it in basketball, and they blew it. They let Ohio State win. That was like the no-win game for me. But if the SEC can't get it done, and even worse, if a Big 12 school wins a national championship, I think you got to start like looking around and saying like, okay. Because it's kind of like when ESPN threw all the money at Texas and then Texas went through their slump and won nothing. And they were like, whose idea was it to have one TV network of only Texas and they stink? Now you have the SEC and they're like, these guys are great. We're telling you they're great. As they're losing 38-3. And they're like, our offense was just so much better than Indiana. Matt, you'll never believe it. You look at the score, never believe that they were so much better than them. But that's all I want to talk about today. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
So the weather up here in Pennsylvania has been from the extremes. We were up in the 80s. Tonight at practice, everyone had jackets and long pants on, and we got our first game tomorrow. So next level of the little league area for us, we're off and running.
You need to be the coach that brings everyone Under Armour, right? Get that cold gear.
No, I'm not Teddy Bridgewater. I'm not going to get run out of my town for illegally buying equipment for my team.
And that's still crazy that they did that they went after him. It's like, thanks for trying to get better yourself, right, buddy?
And then everything with it is like, don't help your community.
Well, that's why
you.
I thought it was crazy that they highlighted that tournament in the basketball documentary about how the players got the NIL and they were like taking it back to their families. And I thought, like, they'll never let this continue. Right? Why are they letting these players take the money and take it back to their family? That's insane. They should be spending it back at the school. Right? They'll set up like communes or something where the players can only spend their money there. But yeah, I think with the NIL stuff, because it's starting to hit high school, right? Does Pennsylvania have anything yet?
I think we're eventually getting there. I think it sounds like there's more within like wrestling right now, where there's out of the area players coming to some of the private schools to be able to wrestle. So I'm sure there's residual from that.
Because I know, isn't it Texas and maybe Georgia? Like some states are starting to allow people to make money. I can't remember what states they are, so you have to look it up. I could have missed the boat, but I'm pretty sure Texas was one of them. And maybe Tennessee or something. Like there were some states where they were trying to get the NIL money to go because they didn't want students all going to Florida, right? They don't want them to go to IMG. And that's where you see like a lot of guys from the Big Ten, right? They're like, well, they're really getting a lot of guys from Florida. No, they're just getting guys back that went to play at IMG. Because if you look at like their hometown, it's like, oh yeah, that guy's from Baltimore. Or that guy's from Philadelphia. No wonder he went to Penn State, right? And so you have that. And you see where it's like, oh, Ohio State and Michigan got a bunch of guys from IMG. It's like, yeah, those guys are all from the states that they went down. And now they're just coming back home to play in front of their family. So I think if states can get the NIL going, but then you know that's going to be a nightmare. I mean, as a coach, you've seen it. Players think like they're the best. You're going to have to try to like make them work hard and then also try to get like the community, like car dealerships and like stuff in your neighborhood to like pay for them. Like insurance companies, like doing ads with like high school kids. It's going to be a mess, I would imagine. Because the infrastructure is not there. Some small towns though, you know, like if that's the biggest game in town, like high school football, they'll find a way, right? They'll have the team colors everywhere. They'll be throwing money at the team to try to get people in because they don't want what you said happening where private schools can come in and pluck the best 2 players from your team and then 2 players from the neighboring town and 2 players from the neighboring town and then make a super team. But I think it's going to be hard to stop that. And will that affect college football? Probably not. Or even basketball? Probably not. So anything else you want to talk about?
That's it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Hopefully we have a good draft. No surprises. And we will see you next week.